The real problem is that you are not, body's like, this is, perilous. I'm going to die. It's, I've got to do something. I've got to act. This is dangerous. But just like it's happened live here today, is that when you've got a trigger, sometimes you just, you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you can't see something because it's you.
That's a good one. I got lots of material for this video, so I did. Lots.
Triggers. Yeah. It's a great topic. We could go on forever about it, couldn't we? Yeah, I think being nice, you can get very triggered by people not being nice too. And actually, the reason that you're triggered by someone not reciprocating what you're giving them is because you're not really being kind. Niceness is not really being kind. It's you going, right, I'm going to do this for you because I want you to see me as nice and I expect you to behave the same way. So it's still coming from you, isn't it? Like, you should do things because they're nice things to do, or have the boundary that actually I'm not going to do these things because I'm being kind to myself. Like, I'm not going to stay late and help you with that because there's things that I'm taking care of myself. And often in those situations, the real problem is that you are not prioritizing yourself. And that's why other people are not prioritizing you. When you start to prioritize yourself, then either you're not in the situation where you're going to feel resentful because you haven't thrown yourself under the bus just to make someone else happy, or other people see that you have respect for yourself and mirror that respect back to you. So
that's it. It's how you live, how you are with you that will reflect back how people treat you. If you treat yourself like shit, if you disrespect yourself, you are going to be disrespected. If you live in love, if you love yourself, love will gravitate towards you. And I seen this when I was working before, like, it's, in factory and stuff. You give, not expecting anything in return, and eventually you see the people around you start to give without expecting in return. So it does come back to you tenfold when you're not doing it for ulterior motives.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's if you don't do something and just let go of it, it was good I did it for the act of kindness, not for the return. It gives you a sense of peace because you're not sat there waiting for it to return to you. Exactly. You're actually creating your own stress because they didn't. It's like boundaries. People think they have boundaries. Boundaries are not boundaries unless they are communicated and they are asserted. So if somebody crosses your invisible boundary that you haven't shared with them, whose fault's that? It's not their fault. They didn't know. It's your fault. And so when you start to look at triggers, you do find out things like that about yourself. Like, so for example, I found that I didn't have boundaries, that I didn't respect myself and my time, that I would be kind, more nice to people, to the point of insanity, where I'm like, I'm running myself into the ground just to make somebody else happy and not being kind to myself. So you discover a lot about yourself when you start following your triggers, don't you? And then you do find that the more experiences that you have with the trigger and not having the strong emotional response, so the way you do that is by trying to put distance between the trigger and you reacting. So you can feel it, but you can do things like deep breathing. You could do things like movement, like doing some exercise, going for a walk. I said breathing. What else could you do? Meditating, being mindful, going writing something down, being in a different place. There's lots of different things that can put space between the trigger and your reaction. And so you go away, you sit in that, you recognize that you're triggered. That's step one, because often we don't even recognize it. We just go, ah!
Well, I recognize it. I just don't know what it like. Every time I get angry, I'm like, I'm fucking triggered.
I guess, though, that when you just cross with a frying pan, there's less need to not be cross. Like if it's like face to face with someone else, obviously you don't want to be cross because that's, you know, it's getting yourself frustrated, but it's not the same impact if you're losing it in front of children or a partner or
but even
friend
for me
or...
and the cat, like, you know, I like, obviously, yes, if I get angry at myself or the saucepan, frying pan, I don't like to say saucepan, frying pan, I get, that's okay. But I shout at the cat, I don't want to shout at the cat, that scares the cat, like.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want, you know, I'm like, it's the same obviously human, like, you know, that's not who I want to be. And I'm like, that's why I sat with it before I come on this live, was literally going, I have to stop being angry with the cat. The cat's not doing anything. Well, she is. She's messing with my head. She's in teenage mode. She knows. She knows she's in hiding. But, you know, as I said, it was nothing to do with her exactly. It was to do with me and feeling rejected by her because she wasn't listening.
She wasn't listening, yeah. And I think that's what triggers me a lot with my kids, that I don't feel listened to. That's why when I lose it, when I'm not the best version of me at dealing with the situation, and then you just feel guilty afterwards. Don't you?
Yeah,
Like,
I felt like shit afterwards, you know what I mean? And then you're apologising to the thing and she doesn't even want to clear you then. And you know, there's another thing, I rub her for a few minutes and then she started licking her, I rubbed. And I'm like, what, she's trying to clean my essence off her. That's just mean. And now you're like literally just talking about this now is actually bringing up the reason, the core wound.
Yeah.
And it's because I wasn't seen and heard as a child. And I lost my voice for most of my life. And now that's what the cat is actually triggering, is that I feel like she doesn't hear me, she doesn't see me.
So let's say for somebody else, they've noticed a trigger, and like the cat situation, and they've thought about it, they've identified the core wound, like yourself, which is, say your core wound again.
So as a child, I felt like I wasn't seen or heard, and that, you know, I just wasn't seen or heard, really.
So what could somebody do once they've identified the core wound to help start to heal that? What things would you do?
So, like, obviously for me personally now, I'm going to have to sit with this later, and I'm going to have to go back to the moments in my childhood where I felt unseen and unheard. And for me, when I go to inner child healing, I have to relive it in a moment so that I can feel it again, release it and let go. So it's about facing that time of your life and understanding, and then you reframe it in a sense to tell yourself that it wasn't my fault that I wasn't seen or unheard. It was my situation. It was my parents' situation. You know what I mean? I didn't do anything wrong as a child. And this is literally just coming up fresh for me now. But like, that's what I need to kind of understand. It's nothing. It was never anything to do with me. So yeah, it's sitting with realizing the core wound, sitting with it, feeling it, but then expressing to yourself and your inner child that it was never your fault in the first place. You know, it's going back to your inner child and saying, none of this is really real. What you're feeling is rejection and pain caused by other people's actions. So it was never ever my fault. And I think when I nurture myself through this, I'll be able to know that my cat's not rejecting me. And you see, I think that's mirrored energy anyway. My fear of her rejecting me is leading her to reject me. And she's not rejecting me. She's sitting on my lap, she purrs, she comes to me when she wants, she's a cat. They do it in their own time. But like, you know, so like, you know, I sometimes be triggered by this because it's cat behaviour. This is what cats do.
Yeah.
But these are emotional wounds that I have around rejection and abandonment. And like, I literally am afraid that she's rejecting and abandoning me. And obviously she's not. So this is reminding me to come back to that I wasn't rejected or abandoned. I was just in a situation where my parents did whatever they did. The same way I'm not being rejected or abandoned by my cat. She's just being a fucking cat.
Yeah, that's it. And it's so obvious when you look at it like that, that it's like, that it's obviously she's not rejecting me, she's just a cat being a cat. But in that moment when you're triggered, and that's what makes it a trigger, is that you're not using your thinking brain, you're using your I'm keeping myself safe brain. You know, it's in, and so it's so important that you try to create space when you feel that trigger. It might be a feeling in your body, it might be thoughts that you notice, but as soon as you notice that rising up, and you probably haven't got very long to respond, try and create some space through breathing or mindfulness or movement or getting out the situation, something to create some distance so that you can experience the feeling and recognize that the feeling is not warranted in this situation, and give yourself time for the rest of your brain to kick in, and you can start being rational again. So then you're not doing things that later perhaps you would regret. And it's like a muscle, isn't it? Like creating that space between a trigger and the reaction. So instead of reacting, responding, you get better at it the more that you do it, and you get better at recognizing that you are triggered. We get really in touch with yourself. So often when I was triggered in the past, I wouldn't know something would happen and I would already be angry. It was like there was no space. Whereas as you get better, you can start to recognize where it starts to feel, it might be tenseness in your jaw. It might be that you start to feel hotter. It might be that you hold your breath. There'll be indicators that give you a clue that you're about to go, and it's just like a muscle. The more that you practice it, the better that you get at creating that distance so that you can respond rather than react in situations.
Well, I was healing my anger issues before, and I had a very good method that, I get so angry at the computer if it's not working, this kind of stuff. And I was like, what I asked myself is this going to affect me in 5 years, or is it going to kill me? And that would make me rationalize the situation. And I actually overcame a lot of my anger issues by using this phrase. But and I'm trying to use that again. But it seems to be not. But I actually sat with it this evening. I was like, it's not going to kill me if she knocks the ball off the tree. It's not going to affect me in 5 fucking years. Why am I getting so angry? But I think the method I'm going to try using now is that count to 10. Because every time you say deep breathing there, I'm going to use that now. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to count to 10 before I react. And if I try and use that tool going forward, I can bring myself back to that calm. Because that's it. And that's all it is. It's about taking yourself back into centering yourself back into calm.
Yeah.
And deep breathing is a great way to do that.
And self-soothing is a great one. So stroking down the arms.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try that on its own.
That one really works.
That's all I probably need is a decent hug off someone.
Yeah.
Hug myself. That's all I need. I just need a bit of comfort.
Yeah, that one really works. I mean, just try doing it now for a minute and see how.
I've done this a couple of times with my inner child before, just a real squeezy hug.
Yeah.
And it actually does help. It really does. Even hugging yourself is good. There's so much I don't know, good energy to come from a hug, even if you have to do it yourself, So it's just that squeeze and touch is actually really better. Actually, I feel so much better.
Yeah,
I just needed a hug.
So, it's really calming doing that. And another is the belly breath thing. So that does send messages to your body that you are safe. So if you're in anxiety, stress, or anger, if you're in that fight, flight, freeze response, then your body's like, this is, perilous. I'm going to die. It's, I've got to do something. I've got to act. This is dangerous. So if you're telling your body that you are safe, giving it indicators that you are safe, then that's going to counteract the feelings and reduce them quicker. So taking a deep breath and breathing into your belly. So often when we breathe, we use just the top of our lungs. If you're breathing and pushing really deep into your sort of belly area, that should also give you a calming effect. Also, long out breaths and holding it for as long as you can also can create calm, because it reduces your pulse rate. So there's lots of little tips and tricks that you can do. And also I think that's really beneficial, just like it's happened live here today, is that when you've got a trigger, sometimes you just, you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you can't see something because it's you. You can't see it because you're in it. But when I was talking about the Polar Express, it was obvious to you what it is. Like sitting outside, you're like, it's obvious. I can see what it is. And so talking it out with someone can be really beneficial. Even if they don't get it right, it can open up conversations that you wouldn't have with yourself.
Yeah.
Having another perspective, having someone to bounce off, just somebody to explain it to. Because when we already think we know, we don't have a reason to explain it to ourselves. So having somebody else there to explain how you're feeling and why you feel you're feeling that way can bring out so much more than you think. It's so beneficial, isn't it?
Exactly. And you remind me of Aaron Dowdy said this as well about him and Victor. They're best friends, like, and clearly they're both coaches, but like they both have their own problems, and then they come to each other, and like, you know, Victor could say this problem to Aaron, and Aaron would be like, "But don't you think it's this?" Like, you know, and he's like, "Duh, it's pure obvious." But because he was, as you said, he was in it himself and he couldn't see that, he needed his friend to kind of go, "Maybe it's this," you know, and that's why we do need people to bounce off. It's literally because, as you said, when you're in it, you just can't see it. Yeah. But like, and that's why this conversation has helped me so much with my cat as well. It's just like, oh yeah, this is making sense now.
Yeah. And sometimes just knowing that a situation isn't about the situation, like your feelings aren't about the situation, it's about something else, doesn't mean that you need to go into a lot of healing and exploration. I mean, sometimes you do, but for every trigger, sometimes just knowing, that's not about this, that's about that. You can let it go. It's
such a weight lifted.
Yeah.
Because you know, like a lot of the time I'm like, why am I bubbling up? Why is this anger coming up? And it's just because I'm inherited anger, and I know that's not real because we can all learn stuff. And it just put fear in me sometimes. So it's just like, why can't I get rid of this feeling? And then when it comes down to this, like, oh, this is why. And you're like, oh my God, it's not me, it's everything.
Yeah, and then it just dissipates because you're like, hold on a minute, that's not about this. It's not about now, that's about before. It's fine. Yeah. So sometimes just identifying, I'm triggered. This isn't about this, it's about that. It can reduce the trigger. And the more that you do that, the less you find that you're triggered. And we'll always be triggered by something. There'll always be things. But I always like to go, isn't that interesting? Get excited when you find a trigger, because you get less and less triggers, I find. Well, I know, like, you can go through periods of where you're triggered a lot, but I find I get less triggered than I used to. So now I'm like, ooh, a trigger. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Like, usually I'm the same. I like, you know, my triggers are getting milder and milder, and then I watch the same thing that triggered me, and I'm like, yay, it doesn't trigger me anymore. I'm healing. But obviously, with the energies I'm in at the minute with this timeline shift, all of my past emotions are coming to the surface. So it's the energies of what's going on at the moment that all of them are coming up. Do you know? So this is it's not normal to have, you know, so many triggers unless it's a transitional period. Like, usually they do eventually get better, and they are better. It's just, obviously, I'm going through a timeline shift, so that's why mine are intense at the moment. We're all going through a timeline shift. What am I saying? It's collective. It's not just me.
It's collective.
We're all going crazy.
So if you're finding that you're getting triggered a lot recently, try these 4 things.
Because you're literally purging out every last bit of your old reality so that we can step into this highest timeline, into our new shiny reality full of love and abundance. We're just getting rid of all that icky stuff so that we can actually make room for the good stuff. And obviously, I have a lot to get rid of because I have a lot to welcome in. We'll go with that.
So 4 steps, so it's easy to remember. First, you name it as a trigger. I am triggered. Secondly, you take some space, so create some space for the ways that we've talked about. Third is state shift, so you allow yourself to be out of that feeling. So whilst you're in that space, you do things that can change how you feel. So exercise, meditation, or whatever. Just exploring and recognizing that this isn't about this moment, this is about something else. To allow your emotion to change so that the rest of your brain kicks in and you can think properly. and then respond rather than react. And you should find that you are a lot less cross, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hold on. I did have a list of 12 things to finish. 12 things to state shift. So one is exercise. We've said this before. Exercise is one. 2 is breathing. 3 is sitting in the feeling and thinking about where the feeling is. So some people might experience it almost as a color. Some might feel it in their chest. You might feel it in tenseness. You might see it as energy somewhere. You might see it as a shape, however you experience that feeling. Self-soothing, which we talked about, stroking your arms or as if you're washing your hands. That can self-soothe. Meditation or prayer, mind and body stuff. So if you do Tai Chi or karate, I do karate, doing some of that can
Kundalini
state shift.
yoga is what I do once a week, and I think that's very, very good for releasing any tension.
There we go. Good. Yeah. Purpose, thinking of your purpose and connection. So why are you doing this? Thinking about your goals and stuff can change how you're feeling and redirect you. Self-humor. So finding the humor in it, like this is, so for example, if I went to the photocopier and it was jammed, instead of feeling the anger and then going, how silly is this? It's just, you know, and laugh at the situation. It's not, it's like you were saying, is somebody going to die? Am I going to care in 5 years?
Exactly.
No. Okay. So,
but you just have to remind me, I shared a video on Facebook of a series of cats knocking down Christmas trees, and I laughed the whole way through. Why can't I laugh at my cat when she does it?
exactly. Well, so have you done that earlier and now, or is it since your cat knocked it down?
Well, no,
I know,
I think I shared it yesterday, and I still got angry with her this morning. But I'm hoping, because I suddenly, when just literally before I come on live with you, I sat with it and I said, "It's the first time I properly sat with it," and asked myself, "Why am I getting so angry with the cat? Because it's not her fault." And that's when I actually realised all the truth behind it was literally at 5 to 6 this evening. So yeah, hopefully tomorrow morning I won't be as angry.
Let's have a look. Self-reflection, journaling, deep relaxation, anchoring. So if you've done anchoring, you might be able to anchor a better feeling. Just dropping it, so letting it go. All of those things can change that feeling so that you're able to respond rather than react in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's I think it's been an hour and 5 minutes now.
Oh wow.
That's even longer than usual.
Oh my gosh. That was a good one. I had lots of material for this video, so I did. Lots. Yeah.
It's a great topic. We could go on forever about it, couldn't we?
That's it.